JBS presents exclusive television coverage of the 2016 Jerusalem Post Conference from the Marriott Marquis Hotel in New York City.
Steve, and welcome you all to our 5th annual Jerusalem Post New York Conference.
I want to say how proud I am to be handing the mantle to such an excellent editor and fine human being, like father to son. He's 20 years younger than me, Yaakov Katz.
Thank you, Steve.
Distinguished guests, friends, and colleagues, we have a fantastic lineup for you today. Among other things, we have the president of the conference, the president of the World Jewish Congress, Ronald Lauder. We have 3 cabinet ministers, Israel Katz, Gilad Erdan, and Gilad Gamliel. We'll shortly be hearing a video address from no other than Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, all the way from Jerusalem. We have 3 panels, one on terror, one on BDS, and one on the economy. 2 of them, Yaakov will be moderating himself. We have some very important Jewish leaders, including 3 rabbis, Eckstein, Margolin, and Jacobs. We have Matthew Bronfman, Malcolm Honline, who is marking his 30th year at the helm of the Conference of Presidents, and Adam Milstein. We have several politicians, including Anat Berko and Elazar Stern, both Knesset members, former Cabinet Minister Gideon Sa'ar, former Chief of Staff Gabi Ashkenazi, the former head of the Mossad, Ephraim Halevi. And by the way, we also have someone named Michael Douglas and the lovely Dr. Ruth, Israeli singer David Rosa, and my friend who will end with Hatikva, David Serrero. I can't mention everyone, obviously. We welcome you all, each and one of you.
It's no secret that today Israel and the new government being formed as we speak, or we'll see the outcome of these talks that are taking place, how it will be formed, faces some daunting challenges. After 68 years of statehood, we have yet to reach the stage of where Israel can rest and lay down its arms. But today we get an insider's tour of the region. We'll take a look from Yemen to Lebanon, from Syria to Egypt, as the unprecedented historic upheaval that has taken hold of the Middle East continues to shake and rock the region. We'll talk about the challenges that we face as a Jewish people, from how do we strengthen Jewish identity, bolster engagement between our youth and the state of Israel, and also anti-Semitism and, of course, BDS. We at the Jerusalem Post are celebrating soon our 84th year anniversary. And we strive, I now have the privilege and honor of following in Steve's footsteps, and those are big shoes, but we strive to continue to do what our founder, Gershon Agron, set down for us in 1932, which was to serve as a platform that can open a window for the world into what's happening with the Jewish return to our ancient land. We talk about the news coverage of Israel on a daily basis. We look at the Jewish world and our challenges as a people, and also developments throughout the region. And I think we do that in an unwavering and as a reliable newspaper. But today, as you all know, we're no longer just a print paper, although we still print an impressive newspaper on a daily basis. But we have millions of people from around the world who come to us on our mobile apps, to our website, JPost.com, who look to us to give them the information so they can make educated, informed decisions and formulate their own opinions in an independent way. That's what we do at the paper. We provide you with opinions and commentary, insightful and thought-provoking, from across the spectrum, from the left and from the right. Some you'll agree with, and some you won't. But we want you to be able to make your own decisions about these tough, critical, and key issues. The same applies here today. We'll hear from speakers from across the spectrum. Some you'll agree with, and some you won't. But I urge you all to please be understanding, to open your minds, to be patient, and most important, to be respectful. Lastly, I'd like to thank the two people who make this conference possible. To Ronit Hochman, she's sitting here in the front, our dedicated CEO of the newspaper, who I have the privilege of working side by side with in making sure that the Jerusalem Post continues to be what you come to us for, a reliable, objective newspaper, and also to look to the future as we grow as a platform. And also to Eli Azur, the newspaper's owner, who joins us this morning, who without him this all would not be possible. I now invite you to sit back for a moment for this short film.
The Jerusalem Post has been telling Israel's fascinating story for over 80 years. We were there during the British Mandate, at the time of the Declaration of Independence and the establishment of the state. We marched together in war and in peace, at times of sorrow and in joy. We have been there at every moment that has shaped the course of Israel's history. And with every issue, we've established ourselves as one of the most accurate and reliable newspapers in the Middle East. As Israel's amazing story continues to develop, we too decided to expand. We have become a news source for 72 different countries around the world. This continuous development stems from a belief in the importance of a connection between world Jewry and the State of Israel. We have not stopped here. Our English language website is Israel's leading news site with more than 9 million viewers a month. Millions of people around the world view our daily news web broadcast. And our special app, it will accompany you anytime or place you want. In order to help preserve freedom of speech in Israel, we acquired the newspaper Ma'ariv Sof HaShavua, which immediately since its launch has become one of Israel's leading newspapers. And so, from a small paper in a small country, which was founded before the establishment of the state, we have evolved into a media group whose conferences are among the most influential and important in the Jewish world. All of this is both thanks to you and for you, the Jerusalem Post. We are the media group that always has and will continue to accompany the nation.
Ladies and gentlemen, Gilad Erdan is not only the Likud's top Knesset member, he currently serves as Israel's Minister of Internal Security, overseeing the police force, and he has played a critical role in combating the latest wave of terror against Israelis. In his other role, Erdan serves as Minister of Strategic Affairs and Public Diplomacy, and he is tasked with one of Israel's most important battles today, the fight against BDS. Friends, please join me in welcoming Minister Gilad Erdan.
Good morning and Shavua Tov. It is a real pleasure to be here at the Jerusalem Post conference. I must say that when I got on the plane only a few days ago, we were still negotiating with Labor and talking about a unity government and the upcoming Paris conference. But, as you know, when I landed, Avigdor Lieberman was designated to become Minister of Defense, and the Israeli left was yelling and screaming that the end of the world is near. Well, I'm landing back in Israel tomorrow afternoon. Let's see what happens by then. Israel, as you know, is a vibrant democracy, a very vibrant democracy. I must say that I'm truly sorry that Bogi Ya'alon is leaving the government and the Knesset. Bogi served the state of Israel for many years and contributed much to its security. But I also must say that I don't really understand his decision to leave. He was elected to serve the people, and he could continue to serve them in a different role in the government. I would also like to say that as someone who has known Avigdor Lieberman personally, and I worked with him for more than 20 years, I am confident that he will make a very good Minister of Defense. I believe that it is good that every once in a while we have a defense minister who doesn't come from the military establishment. Someone from the outside can bring fresh thinking and a fresh perspective to Israel's security strategy. And let me say to all those on the left who want to pin on Lieberman's appointment the chances of advancing the peace process, the primary obstacle to advancing the peace process has been and remains Abu Mazen's decision to boycott the Israeli government and refuse negotiations. And if I've mentioned boycotts, I can begin now to discuss with you the subject which I had planned to present here today when I got on the plane. So friends, I would like you to imagine two people. On the one side, picture a sophisticated university professor who believes that Israel is the root of all evil. On the other, a young man from Hebron, taught to hate from a young age and motivated by Islamic extremism. At first glance, they have little in common. Sure, neither is too keen on Israel, but they come from different backgrounds, move in different circles, and express themselves in different ways. The professor acts out his hostility towards Israel through leading BDS campaigns, organizing boycotts of Israeli academics, using intimidation to prevent Israeli voices from being heard, and spreading bile and lies about Israel in his classroom. The young man's hatred is expressed through taking a knife or gun and going out to murder innocent Israelis. While he dare not admit it, the BDS leader has more in common with the terrorist than with genuine human rights activists. Though their tools are different, BDS and terrorism are united in their goals, they are united in their language of hate, and they are united in their victims. They not only complement each other, they fuel each other. Their shared goal is simple and explicit: the destruction of the state of Israel. Just as we only have to read the Hamas charter to understand their objective, comments from BDS leaders leave us with no doubt as to their end game. As Omar Baraghouti himself, a co-founder of the BDS movement, has said, definitely, most definitely, we oppose a Jewish state in any part of Palestine. Or to quote California State University professor Asad Abu Khalil, the real aim of BDS is to bring down the state of Israel. BDS and terror also share the language of hate, in which incitement against Israelis is the norm and violence is legitimized. We have seen this hate in the British Labour Party in recent weeks, from former Mayor of London Ken Livingstone's claims that the creation of the State of Israel was a catastrophe, to Councillor Aziz's call on Jews to stop drinking Gaza blood. When you continuously delegitimize a group, you legitimize violence against them. Words can kill. BDS and terror also share victims. Terrorism harms all in its path, irrespective of their origin, such as we all remember as Taylor Force, the American Army veteran stabbed to death in Jaffa, or Richard Lakin, who died after being shot and stabbed on a bus in Jerusalem. Richard was a former Connecticut school principal who came to Israel to teach both Jewish and Arab children, and wrote a book called Teaching as an Act of Love. And he was murdered by those taught to hate. Richard's son, Micah, is a close friend of mine, and I will never forget his tears as he told me how such a gentle, loving man was so brutally murdered. BDS also harms all in its path. Who here knows that 1 in 4 biotechnology solution in the world has Israeli roots? Think about it. 1 in 4. And that is what they want to destroy. If BDS succeeds, amongst its victims will be cancer patients, stroke victims, and those with Alzheimer's across the world who are given life by Israeli innovation. The Palestinians are not immune to the consequences of such a boycott. The first victims of BDS are often the Palestinians themselves. We saw this recently when 500 Palestinians lost their jobs at SodaStream when the company was forced to relocate its factory, and they lost their jobs only because of BDS. Unlike the boycotters, we are concerned about human rights, both for Israelis and for Palestinians. We want dialogue. We want coexistence. We want to build bridges. The tragedy of BDS is that it does exactly the opposite. Just like terrorism, it does nothing for the Palestinians. It is not pro-Palestinian. It is anti-Israel. That's what it is. And so, when we take into account their shared goal, language, and victims, what we see is that our boycotting university professor, remember him, and our terrorist from Hebron, in fact, represent two sides of exactly the same ideology. Friends, BDS and terror are two sides of the same coin. As both Minister of Internal Security and Minister of Strategic Affairs, I am at the forefront of the fight against both threats. I see similarities between the two and the challenges they pose to all of us. Since last September, dozens of Israelis have been murdered and hundreds injured in terror attacks. Roughly half of the terrorists have been young people, brainwashed by Islamist incitement. This is particularly evident in the social media. And let's take again the case of Richard Lakin, who was murdered as a result of online incitement. His killers were inspired by what they saw online and instructed by posts which explains in detail how to stab someone to death. Not someone, Jew. One of his killers even announced his plan for the attack on Facebook. Friends, anyone looking at his killer's Facebook page could have predicted what was coming. Anyone? Anyone, but not Facebook. Social media companies are happy to use the data they collect on all of us to make money, huge money, but unfortunately not to help stop terror. These companies must recognize that their platforms are used as a tool of terror. And I call on Mark Zuckerberg, Larry Page, Sergey Brin, and their colleagues to take the initiative to monitor and remove this incitement on their own. if they refuse and continue to ignore their role in promoting incitement, governments must pass legislation forcing them to do so. Thank you. I'm talking about it with ministers from all around the world because they are also worried from the use of social media to recruit the young generation to join ISIS, Daesh, and as I said, today they are part of the problem and they must become part of the solution. For many years we have seen that this incitement is also widespread in Palestinian schools, universities and social media, official media channels. This incitement glorifies terror and encourages violence, even teaching children as young as kindergarten to stab Jews. As a human being and a father of 4, I am sickened at the thought of children being taught violence, not peace, to hate, not to love. Friends, teaching hate will never lead to peace, and it doesn't matter what kind of agreement will be signed. But we are making progress in combating this wave of violence and incitement. We have developed systems to identify potential lone wolf terrorists from their social media posts. We increased the number of police officers in Jerusalem to enhance both prevention and deterrence. And we outlawed Islamist groups who are inciting violence, such as the northern branch of the Islamic movement. These steps and others, thank you, have affected the reality on the ground. April was the first month since Rosh Hashanah with 0 Israeli fatalities from terror attacks. And the number of attacks has decreased from 67 in October to 7 in April. But don't get me wrong, this is still 7 too many. But we are moving, as I said, in the right direction. The same is true in the fight against BDS, a battle that is no less intense and no less important. In light of this challenge, for the first time, the government gave the Ministry of Strategic Affairs responsibility and also budget for fighting BDS. We are working to expose their true face, to counter boycott initiatives and anti-Israel propaganda, and to use both cutting-edge technologies and the passion of grassroots activists to spread the truth. We are also bringing leaders from different sectors to experience Israel for themselves. And I'm sure you agree with me that once you visit, the BDS lies become obvious and the truth becomes clear. BDS activists claim they are hurting the Israeli economy. Well, in reality, ladies and gentlemen, our economy continues to grow. In 2015 alone, foreign direct investment in Israel increased by, listen to this, 71%. And in fact, of the 500 companies that have been targeted by boycotters, only a tiny minority have stopped their activities in Israel. More and more decision makers are seeing the true nature of BDS and are taking steps to stop it. Banks in Europe, even this morning, have closed the accounts of BDS organizations due to violations of anti-discrimination laws and their connections to terror. This must become the norm of banks around the world. We have also seen anti-BDS legislation and regulations in many countries, including the US, UK, France, and Spain. These successes have caused the BDS movement, listen to this, to write to the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, asking him to protect, and I quote, their right to boycott Israel. For the first time, and that is positive, BDS extremists are on the defensive. But I want to be very clear. We cannot afford to be complacent. While almost all companies, as I said, ignore the intimidation, a tiny minority give in. For example, and this is the first time I'm going to say it, BDS was a factor in the decision of security company G4S to sell their operation in Israel, and I know it personally. The company is now trying to convince everyone that BDS was not a factor. Don't listen to them. Giving in to BDS was a mistake, both morally and financially. And companies that take such politically motivated decisions must pay a price, and they will. So hopefully G4S is going to start pay the price, because only a few days ago I received this letter from our friend Rick Scott, governor of Florida. It says how proud he is to have signed a law that prohibits the Florida Board of Administration from investing in companies that boycott Israel. Yeah, he deserves it. I am proud of Governor Scott and of the governors of Illinois, South Carolina, and Iowa, amongst others, who signed similar laws. They are true friends who are standing with Israel in the fight against hate, and we all thank them. BDS is also a serious issue on university campuses. I am appalled by events like Israel Apartheid Week, which are really just hotbeds of hate. Particularly concerning is the involvement of members of Hamas-affiliated organizations in BDS activity, which was revealed in a recent testimony before Congress. I have personally written to Congressman Ed Royce and Elliot Engel and to Treasury Secretary Jacob Lew, asking them to investigate and expose the connections between Hamas-affiliated organizations and BDS. Who funds them? Who's behind them? These are well-funded groups who are determined to achieve their goals. But friends, so are we. We have truth on our side, and that is why we will prevail. I believe that just like in the battle against terror, one of our strongest assets in this struggle against BDS is our unity. Friends, there is no left and right in this fight, no Labor and Likud, no coalition and opposition. In this, we are one country united and one people united. And this is where you come in. In the fight against terror, not everyone can be on the front lines. But in the fight against BDS, the battlefield, as you know, is different, because you are on the front line. You are our special forces. You are our Yamam and our Sayeret Matkal. And I'm truly grateful for all your hard work, your commitment, and your courage. That is for you. So there is a lot more we can all do. So to everyone who believes in the values of truth and honesty, go out, not now. Go out. Tell your friends what is really happening in Israel. Go out and counter the lies our enemies are spreading. Go out and spread truth, not hate, because together, only together, we will, Be'ezrat Hashem, win. Thank you very much.
Minister Erdan, thank you very much for that speech, and I think it possibly was one of the most comprehensive speech we've heard from you when it comes to how Israel and the Jewish community can battle BDS. Our next speaker is a true leader. Ronald Lauder, president of the World Jewish Congress, is constantly fighting on behalf of Israel and the Jewish people. I recently had the privilege of seeing this up close when I was in Argentina, and I saw how Mr. Lauder brought the World Jewish Congress to Buenos Aires the same week as Israel and Argentina commemorated the 24th anniversary of the attack on Israel's embassy in Argentina. Mr. Lauder, thank you so much for what you do. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the President of the World Jewish Congress, Ronald Lauder.
Boker Tov and good morning. Thank you, Jakob, for that kind introduction. Chairman Royce, Pastor Dermer, Pastor Donon, distinguished ministers, members of the Knesset, honored guests. I'm delighted to be here today with so many friends of Israel. I want to thank the Jerusalem Post and Eliezer for inviting me to speak at this timely and important conference. We are here today at a critical moment in the fight for a vibrant and secure Jewish homeland. The stakes have never been higher. For nearly 70 years, our enemies have repeatedly tried to defeat us militarily, and they have failed. They have tried to defeat us economically, and they have failed. Now they are trying to defeat us politically. And in this, though it pains me to say it, they are winning. They are winning at the United Nations, which has become little more than an anti-Israel political cartel. They are winning on college campuses where young people are being brainwashed by anti-Israeli activists who spew hatred under the guise of BDS. And with each passing day, without a two-state solution, they are winning the conversation about peace. We need to change our approach. For far too long, we have been silent. The era of the quiet Jew, the timid Jew, the ghetto Jew is over. The tough, brilliant leaders of the Zionist movement buried that Jew 3 generations ago. So why does it still seem like we're the victim? That ends now. That ends today. We are done being the victims. We are done being quiet. Enough is enough. Or as my late father used to say, Ganuk is Ganuk. We know what needs to be done. We must put an end to the UN's appalling and sinister obsession with Israel. We must combat the threat of BDS, and we must champion peace. Let me begin with the UN. Winston Churchill once expressed the hope that the UN will become, and I quote, a true temple of peace. Instead, the UN today is a hotbed of anti-Israel hatred, a place where the world's worst human rights abuses are given a platform to denounce Israel. The UN has a long and disturbing history of holding Israel to a double standard, and that's only gotten worse. Since the Human Rights Council was created in 2006, 67 resolutions have been passed condemning Israel, and only 61 on the rest of the world combined. Why is there such an outrage against the state of Israel? Where is the outrage against Syria and Iraq, where more than 500,000 men, women, children have been slaughtered? Or North Korea, where millions have been systematically starved? Or Iran, which hangs women, gays, and dissidents from cranes? The UN twisted obsession with the Jewish state has undermined the UN's role in the world. If the UN is going to restore its diminished standing, it needs to stop giving voice to tyrants who would rather point the finger at Israel than risk having it pointed at themselves. Only then can the UN be a temple of peace and not a cauldron of hatred. And to those countries that profess to be friends of the US or that accept US aid to help their economy, this is what I want to say to you. A vote against Israel at the UN is a vote against the United States. Last week, France voted in UNESCO as a resolution that changed the names of Jewish historic sites in Jerusalem to Arabic names. The French government has since said that that vote was a mistake. But there have been too many mistakes by too many countries for too long. If the UN doesn't change, if the hatred against Israel continues, then we, the United States, we should be prepared to think seriously about who our friends really are. And we should be prepared to reevaluate how much funding we provide the UN. Let me next discuss the threat of the BDS movement, which you heard a little bit about before. The BDS presents itself as some sort of democratic movement concerned with human rights. That's a lie. On the contrary, BDS is an international campaign to incite hostility against the Jewish homeland and erode its legitimacy. But there are really two dimensions to BDS. The first is the boycott of Israeli products, professors and performers, and the many extraordinary ideas and accomplishments that Israel exports. But I want to discuss today the second front, the BDS fight on colleges and campuses. I've long believed that our greatest asset is our children and their education. But from the moment our children arrive at school, they face a barrage of anti-Israeli lies. This is particularly harmful because for most young people, college is their first exposure to the history and politics of the Middle East. These young people are vulnerable to the propaganda of anti-Israeli activists who hide behind misleading names like Students for Justice in Palestine or the Muslim Students Associations. These two student groups are little more than a recruiting tool for the Muslim Brotherhood. They defend Hamas and advance its propaganda. Their regular slogan, chanted at campuses across the United States, is they sing, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." Think about that for a moment. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. The river is Jordan, and the sea is the Mediterranean. These activists are calling for the destruction of the Jewish state. They claim they are only anti-Israel, not anti-Semitic, but we know that's a lie. As Pope Francis recently said, there is no distinction between anti-Israel and anti-Semitic. These anti-Israel, anti-Semitic radicals are organized, and they are relentless. I have a bold new plan with the help of the World Jewish Congress to create a network of Jewish political organizations at key colleges and universities. These student groups will be staffed by highly skilled young professionals who will train Jewish students to be proud of their heritage, to be proud of Israel, and to expose the lies being told about Israel. And that's not all. We're also going to expose colleges and universities that give cover to professors who parrot jihadist talking points. We are putting together a list of the colleges and universities who are the worst offenders. These colleges, most poisoned by anti-Israeli sentiment, will appear in newspapers throughout the world. With this knowledge, we will mobilize alumni and donors to these universities and we will tell them that they should think twice about giving money to these universities who are so anti-Semitic. We must stand up and be heard, and we care about Israel, and we will demand that legislatures withhold funding to schools that get money from legislatures. We will not be silent. We will hold them to account. No college campus would allow racist or homophobic hate speech to go unanswered. So why the double standard when it comes to anti-Israel, anti-Semitic hate speech? The bottom line is this: freedom of speech should not be abused to mean the freedom to be anti-Semitic. Above all, as we fight to defend Israel at the UN and at colleges and universities across the globe, we must move forward on peace. We must remind the global community that the children of Israel want peace. In July 2009, Prime Minister Netanyahu delivered a great speech about peace at Bar-Ilan University. That speech continues to inspire me to this day. He said, and I quote, "We want to live with the Palestinians in peace, quiet, and good neighborly relations. We want our children and your children to know war no more. We don't want parents and wives, sons and daughters, brothers and sisters to know the sorrow of bereavement. We want us and our neighbors to devote our efforts to plowshares and pruning hooks, and not swords and spears, end quote. And I agree with Prime Minister Netanyahu. I believe deep in my bones that peace is possible. I believe, in fact, there has never been a better time for peace. Israel has a strong leader and a newly unified government, including the new Defense Minister, Avigdor Lieberman. I've spoken to many Arab leaders, and they all tell me that they want peace, and they want it now. Indeed, the making of a peace deal are clear to those who are willing to listen. So now is the time to focus. Now is the time to see it through. I hope that the next President of the United States is an active partner in these efforts. Of course, we can pursue peace, but we must be steadfast in our refusal to accept preconditions or to do anything that would compromise Israel's security. There's no denying that great challenges lie ahead for Israel, and indeed for Jews throughout the world. From the UN, where anti-Semitism has reached a fever pitch, to college campuses, where young people are told by BDS radicals that Israel is Goliath and the Palestinians are the noble David, to the imperative for pushing for peace. So where do I find hope and confidence in our capacities to succeed and to rise to these challenges? Let me tell you, when the Jews were attacked in the 1930s and 40s, we had no one to help us. We were alone. Today we are not alone. Today we have a proud and strong Israel. We have a proud and strong Jewish communities in 100 different countries. As president of the World Jewish Congress, I've witnessed firsthand the fortitude of world Jewry. I want to make you a promise. In every place where the scourge of anti-Semitism festers, whether in the meeting rooms of the United Nations or the student centers in colleges and universities, we, the World Jewish Congress, stand ready to fight back. I give you my word, world Jewry is ready to fight, ready to stand up to anti-Semitism. We are ready to defend the Jewish homeland. We will renew the promise that we made one generation to the next. In the words we have cried out in every chapter of our history, Am Yisrael Kai. Thank you.
Nothing here. Mr. Lauder, thank you very much for that speech. We now have the real pleasure of a special address from our Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who took the time out of his very busy schedule trying to form a new government, or at least increase the existing government, to give us a special address. I think that you all agree with me that the Prime Minister of Israel is not just the Prime Minister of the State of Israel, but is the Prime Minister of Jews from around the world.
I send warm greetings from Jerusalem to all of you at the Jerusalem Post Conference. The Jerusalem Post is a great newspaper with great editors like Steve Lindy. I wish you great success, Steve. And I wish your incoming editor, Yaakov Katz, every success as well. Today I want to talk about the power of words. The Jerusalem Post knows the power of words. This is what you do. Every morning your editors and your correspondents wake up and decide which words to use. And you choose these words carefully because you know the power of words. Yet many around the world abuse the power of words. I want you to close your eyes for a moment. I want you to imagine that somebody stood up today and opened their speech with the following words. Yazidis are the most despicable and contemptible people to crawl upon the face of the earth. Imagine this person going on to say, Yazidis are apes and pigs. And then this person going on to say further, kill all Yazidis, down to the very last one. This outrageous statement sounds like ISIS. It is ISIS. But replace the word Yazidis with Jews, and these statements are taken word for word from the leadership of Hamas. That is what they say every day. Now, anyone who utters such words about Yazidis, about Jews, about blacks, about any people, would rightly be labeled a pathological racist and a dangerous fool. Yet this hateful language that should be condemned everywhere and always is not condemned everywhere and always. Hatred against the Jewish people is so routine in the Middle East that many in the West fail to notice it, let alone condemn it. Millions of children are being taught daily that Jews are subhuman, that they're apes and pigs, and that they have to be destroyed, that they're vermin, that they must be annihilated. These children get up each morning, put their clothes on, and go to school. They play with their friends, they ride their bikes, but their pure and impressionable souls are then seized by fanatics. Their minds are poisoned with hatred. This is one of the worst crimes imaginable. No child should be taught to hate, let alone kill or want to die. Yet this is exactly what is happening daily throughout the Middle East, from Raqqa to Ramallah. Just imagine if it happened to your child. Imagine how you'd feel if someone took away your child's doll and instead handed them a knife. The words have consequences. Just the other day, CNN interviewed a 13-year-old Palestinian girl named Sabrine. They asked her why she left school one day with a knife in her backpack to try to murder an Israeli. Here's what she said. I wasn't concentrating on anything, not playing or even doing homework, Sabrine said. I was only watching Al-Aqsa TV. I saw all those girls and guys doing what they do, and I wanted to do the same for my country. She added, the hate that we have for them is our motivation. Now, Al-Aqsa TV, where Sabrine saw all this, is Hamas TV. That's the name of the Hamas television outlet. It's responsible for much of the violence that we see today. Sabrine is a victim too because no 13-year-old child is fully aware of his or her actions. But the adults that convince young Sabrine to dehumanize Jews and go out and kill them, they are responsible. The adults that brainwash little Sabrine to yearn for death over life, they're responsible. Ending this hatred is critical to advancing peace. This is the crux of the problem, this incitement to kill Jews and kill the Jewish state. Ending this is essential for peace. This is a mission I hope all of you take upon yourselves today. Encourage your friends, your family, your elected leaders to highlight the hatred of Hamas, Iran, and I regret to say the Palestinian Authority as well. Combat their hatred by spreading tolerance and respect. Do not let their words go unchallenged. Battle back with words of your own. Never forget how much power your words have. Working together, I'm confident that hope will triumph over fear, that tolerance will deflect bigotry and defeat it, and that peace will overcome war. Thank you all.